Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to I Hate Rock Music. But in this case, I'm not even sure if I'd call it rock music. And that's the band called Brave New World. And another one of these kind of obscure uh, German prog bands on the Vertigo label. So another great Vertigo record. And so the band's called Brave New World. The album's called Impressions on Reading Aldous Huxley. And so obviously that classic dystopian novel was something that they wanted to express musically. And they came out of Hamburg in 1972, made this one record, and then pretty much disappeared. And one side of the record is 18 minutes long, and it's a song called The End. Although the way the record flows, it's kind of really hard to dice it up into different songs or pieces. But really interesting mixture, really unlike anything I've ever heard. I know a lot of stuff on Vertigo is unlike anything I've ever heard, but this record in particular, it's a musical landscape that's evocative, complex, and haunting. And a lot of times you can't even figure out what kind of instruments are all mashed together to make it. And then it has krautrock aspects of it, including some rhythm parts that remind me of Can, but there's also some weird folk elements stuck in it, and then some weird jazz elements. So the band's Reinhard Furchow on recorders, flutes, ocarina, stylophone, percussion, and vocals. Lucas Lindholm on bass fiddle, organ, and piano. Dick Tarash on drums and percussion. Herb Geller on flutes, saxes, and cor anglaise. John O'Brien Docker on guitar, organ, percussion, vocals, wind chimes, and then Esther Daniels on vocals. And so, looking at that list, you kind of can see why the tapestry that Brave New World has created on this record is so unusual and so hard to define, with these very interesting instruments: the ocarina, the stylophone, and then of course you have the bass fiddle, and then the cor anglaise, and then Herb Geller, who's a known quantity in the jazz world on flute, saxes, and so real interesting mixture, and a lot of people playing weird instruments in this band besides having a rhythm section. Um, and some guitar work, and a lot of flutes and sax are definitely a big part of the sound of this record that kind of weave in and out of these tapestries they create. And Esther Daniels, she's listed on vocals, but there's one spoken part, and then there's one part with minimal singing. So to say there's any singing on this record is kind of misdirecting, because there really isn't any vocals to speak of on this record. It's definitely instrumental. But listening to it, I'm kind of surprised that even a label as adventurous as Vertigo would pick this one out. There were so many great bands vying to be on Vertigo records at the time. The ones they pick and choose is often perplexing. And I love this record, but how Vertigo decided to sign them and think there would be an audience is hard to imagine. Um, as I mentioned, there really isn't anything quite like that. And I know there's a lot of records out there that aren't like anything else we've ever heard, but this one's definitely right up there. As I mentioned, just because in this evolving, morphing tapestry that they create on this record, a lot of times it's really even hard to identify what instruments are being used. And then the arrangements and the forms of the musical pieces are so nebulous and vague sometimes that it's even hard to zero in on exactly what kind of construction is being used and presented as music. So I know that doesn't make it, my descriptions don't make it any easier to figure out what's going on this record. So as usual, it's something to go down to the link and check it out and see what you think. It's one of those Vertigo records that I think a lot of Vertigo fans may not be aware of, and I'm not even sure if it came out in the rest of Europe or the UK. It might be a German only thing, but interesting that they only lasted long enough to make this record. They were in and out the door, but left this really cool record behind, and a one of a kind. So it does kind of remind me of some of the experimental music coming out of Chicago these days. Sometimes, um, even some bands like Tortoise and the like. But there you have it. Or Godspeed You, Black Emperor is another band that sometimes this group reminds me of. But check them out. Brave New World. We'll see if it is. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.